As opening day approaches, the LSU Tigers will look to do something that not many teams have been able to accomplish, that being going back-to-back, winning back-to-back national championships. Helping us break down the 2026 edition of LSU, good friend of mine, friend of the show, Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports, one of the best in the business, who somehow has enough time to chat with us amidst all of the Lane Kiffin chaos, transfer portal, what's been going on down in the Bayou the last month and a half. Plus, Blake, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. I was thinking about this when we jumped on. It has been too long since you and I were last on the airwaves, but you have been a very, very busy man. Again, Lane Kiffin has had you running nonstop, my friend.
Yeah, the last 2 months, I think, from just a real person standpoint, I think that this has been the biggest part of the AYS side of business. There's a lot of very talented people that do LSU content. I don't mean this in any way, but you could see the numbers, and it's just really, Chris, been a whirlwind. That our good buddy Ty Richardson came into town and went to eat dinner with him one night. And I just, look, man, I put all the cards on the table, and I was like, LSU fans, here it is. And then it got to message boards. It got to, Tiger dropping. So, hey, man, Ruffino's saying this. And then, Chris, over that 24-hour span, the X, Y, and Z that happened with Kiffin literally played out on the podcast the day before, right? And so I'm like, yeah, I knew what was happening. I knew that this was going to happen. And so from that day forward, Chris, it's been a complete whirlwind. You talk about Brian Kelly. You talk about Jeff Landry. You talk about, all of the situations, Verge Alsbury. You talk about all of that, and then you get to hear, which, Chris, he said at his opening press conference, did Lane, that, we're going to bring the most talented people in here. And Chris, they're one player away from potentially doing that. And you know how I am. You, of all people, more than anybody, know how I am. And I'm pretty conservative when it comes to projections. I'm having a very, very, very hard time not getting to a place where I'm like, I know. All right. Because I don't think you're going to be dead last in the SEC in rushing. You're going to run the football. You brought in what was one of the better running backs in Dylan Jones. You bring back Harlan Berry. You got Trades Green, who was misutilized, and all of a sudden steals in the top 10 in the SEC and touchdowns. How does that happen? Joe Sloan was his offensive coordinator, and he still got there. What is Sam Levitt's foot? Oh, by the way, if that son of a bitch falls off, you got Hassan Longstreet that's sitting there behind him. The offensive line, I think you got one of the best guards in the portal. I think you're going to be tougher, more physical. By the way, no one wants to talk about these receivers. Oh, you got a wide receiver from Hawaii. Okay. Well, I also saw him go up against a lot of really good players and do a lot of really good things. I think they got, Mansour Delane's brother, who might be your fourth safety. Oh, he was a former 5-star. Ty Benefield's the number one safety in the portal. You cleaned up along your defensive line. My nipples are getting hard. If I'm just being completely blunt with you. And so that's the part where look, you know me. I want to see him in spring. I got to get my own evaluations. But, Chris, as we sit here on paper, my question just starts becoming, all right, Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin. You know what you're going to get. What I didn't know, and I think is different from a place like Ole Miss to LSU, Chris, he's getting on planes and going and locking down dudes. He's walking in traps and taking over traps. And that's the part where, Brian Kelly was sitting on his couch eating a pickle, and then this dude's flying a plane to go get the number one quarterback in the portal. So I think that's the thing that people didn't really understand about him, because the caricature, the Twitter, the trolling, all of this. Chris, I've had four sources tell me that he's sleeping at the facility every night. He's sleeping there, he's waking up. And so that's the part where I'm like, yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I wake up at 5:30, he's tweeting at 3 a.m. Hey, we got Prince William yelling. So that's the thing for me, Chris. It's like, all right, now you start putting this on paper. What do you start doing on the field? I hope he sees this clip and quotes it and says rat poison.
Well, Blake, now that I got your nipples hard, I'm going to really turn you on, because I do want to talk some baseball, obviously. That's why the people are here. We're, 3 weeks or so away from opening day, just darn near about that. Jay Johnson, again, looking to go back-to-back, 2 national titles in the last 3 years. Obviously, last year, 53-15 overall, 19-11 in the SEC. Who can forget the the run that we had following the Bayou Bengals down in Omaha. What a couple weeks that was. Obviously, you came down there. It's very, very well documented. We were joking before we went on. I feel like I've earned forever immunity with the LSU fan base, despite some thinking otherwise because of the last few months of me playing both sides of the fence with this LSU Ole Miss thing. But again, on the baseball side specifically, Blake, there's a lot to get into here. Obviously, there's a ton of excitement. LSU's ranked number 2 in essentially every single poll. You could argue they should be number 1. When I say the word dynasty, you think of Skip Bertman, 5 natties in 10 seasons. Obviously, the landscape of college sports, college baseball, even is a lot different than when Skip did it back in the 90s. But like, they win another one this year. If they win another one the next year, like we're kind of reaching that territory. Would you agree? Do you feel like we are on the verge of the next great LSU baseball dynasty? Again, it's never been harder than it's ever been. There's more parity in the sport. The SEC is as deep as it's ever been. So you could argue it would be maybe even a greater feat if Jay were able to do it. But when I say the word dynasty, is that something that you feel like is a focus for LSU? And I'll couple it with this too, Blake. One of the most difficult things in sports is going back to back because there's a sense of complacency that sets in. There's a championship hangover. This isn't the first go for Jay and LSU coming off a national title. And we know how that next season went, right? Got off to a really rocky start in SEC play. The schedule beat up on you a little bit. You had questions to answer that maybe took a little bit longer. That season was a quote-unquote disappointment for LSU standards. So thoughts on the dynasty chatter, because I've heard that this preseason, and then just what you've seen and heard from the program of how the mentality that they're taking going into this season in an attempt to go back-to-back.
Now that it is officially baseball season, there's only one way I start this segment. With a rally pillow. So,
yes.
You know what's funny about this? On January the 20th of 2024, me and you had a conversation and a video went very viral because I stated, number 1, I hated what they did with the schedule. But number 2, I called LSU the pinnacle of college baseball, which, there were people that were out there saying what they were saying. I didn't disagree with you on the schedule. I disagree with you on LSU being the pinnacle of college baseball. Now that we circle back a year from that statement to now, who was right? Who? Hoonst. However you want to say it. But I leave that there. See, I think when you talk about dynasty and you talk about them winning it in 2023, then going into 2024, Chris, I think there was a couple of things. I don't think anybody knew how to reload during the portal when you're trying to win your first national title, right? You had Skeens that left. You had Cruz that left. You had Brayden Jobert that left. You had Gavin Dugas that left. You had a lot of players that left, and you had a lot of true freshmen or guys who were first-time starters that were coming into those roles, meaning like you had Stephen Milam. Chris, he was a true freshman, right? You had Michael Braswell, who, yes, had experience in reference to what they did, but at the same time, he hadn't been an everyday shortstop in the SEC at the most pinnacle high in the SEC. You didn't have the frontline pitching. Now, you had Holman, you had Gage Jump, but Gage Jump was coming off of a Tommy John. Luke Holman was very solid, but the bats didn't really get you there until the end when you got into the SEC tournament, and we all remember that, and you're a run away from beating Tennessee in that whole process. So now you fast forward, and then the next season you win it all. Well, Chris, they had the number 1 portal class. They didn't do that the first go around. So now the question becomes, did Jay learn? And what did Jay learn during that process? Now you return Case and Evans. You return Zach Cowan. You return a lot of front line arms. What is William Schmidt? I've seen William Schmidt throw 3 times this season or this fall so far. He was sitting around 94, 95 to when I saw him the last time that he threw, it was at 96, 97. So that's the part where I'm saying now, Chris, I think there's more of a baseline that he didn't have in that first go-around. So when you talk about dynasty, you're right. It's hard to repeat. There's a sense of complacency. However, you return Derek Curiel. You return Jake Brown. You return Chris Stanfield, who's going to get in a battle in left field to stay there. You go out and you go into the portal, and Seth Dardar, who really didn't make a move in the fall, Chris yesterday takes Kaysen Evans deep and then hits another line drive into right field that scores a run. Derek Curiel walks 3 times. Jake Brown's in that 3-hole. Yikes. So then you add pieces like Cade York. Does Reeves is he able to lock down that second base position? What's the battle going to be like at third base with 2 guys, one at High Point and one at Oregon State, that really emerged late in the season? Can Omar Cerna, the true freshman, be the guy that ktaEm Beatty was last year? I think a lot of people forget about how crucial ktaEm Beatty was. And I think the big thing is you're replacing Papi behind the plate. And so now you have some pieces that you got to replace. Like, can you replace a Cade Anderson? Chris, do you replace a top 3 overall pick? Right? Like, that is a difficult thing, a feat to have. By the way, he's coming from the left side of things. So I think from a staff standpoint, they got all the talent that they need to be really good. It just now comes to a point, you talk about the complacency, figuring a lot of things out early. How does that work? And because we saw A&M completely wee-wee their pants. But my question would be, do you Tennessee the thing? Right? Like, Tennessee is a runaway from getting back to Omaha, beating Arkansas and all that stuff. I think that you're even more talented than that team overall. Like, there was guys that last year didn't pitch. We didn't see Devin Sheeran, like, who went into Mississippi State from a D3 school and shoved it right down their candy ass. So that's the part where I look at this, Chris, and say from a talent aspect, they could get there. And the last thing I'd say in reference to complacency, there's a lot of guys that are starting that don't have that. Meaning, you have Zach York, this is his last year. You have Seth Dardar, who this is his last year, which, by the way, Seth Dardar took Cade Anderson deep last year. He took Kaysen Evans deep yesterday. I mean, Chris, good God. Like, so can he hit SEC pitching? Well, clearly he can. So that's the part where I'm like, there's a lot of good mixture of guys that can teach them the ropes, but then those guys are hungry coming in like, hey, man, we want it again. So I know that's a lot of words and a lot of bringing that in there, but I think they basically, what I could have just said in one sentence, they have the talent to do it. It just, can you get the pieces? Because it's not easy replacing an Anthony Ianson. It's not easy replacing a Cade Anderson. But do you have a top 5 pick in Kaysen Evans? Do you have a top 5 pick in William Schmidt? I mean, Chris, the ultimate, if you talk to, when you came down to Baton Rouge, arguably one of my best friends has been a vice president in scouting for Major League Baseball teams that literally win World Series. Okay? And so what would he tell you? I know what he'd tell you. He'd tell you that, look, Cade Anderson's elite because he's a lefty. But there's a strong chance that Evans and Schmidt are also going to be there. So, again, I don't know from a talent aspect that you dip. It just, can they put it all together? That will be the ultimate question. It's William Schmidt have that Cade Anderson level jump. You see the talent, you see the stuff. And Chris, when I saw him, I mean, it was arguably, I don't want to put this on him. It was one of the best outings that I'd seen even going into last year. It kind of reminded me of what Anthony Ianson did to some degree, because I think that Schmidt's found some off-speed stuff. So again, you're bringing that all in, man. They're stacked and loaded once again. So I don't know how to answer that from a dynasty standpoint, but if you do it again, I mean, this to me is more impressive than maybe what Skip did because of the portal. And Skip made SEC baseball fun. Skip built this. I've equated this, and people, even a year ago when you and I talked, is Jay Johnson the Nick Saban to Skip Bertman, Bear Bryant? That's the real question that you have to ask yourself. So that's the part where you look at this and say, Jay's recruited at a high level and they've done some good things. And I'll just end it with this. Retaining your staff when Duke went after him and other teams, you got Coach Yeski, you have Josh Jordan that's there. I don't think people understand how big of a deal that is as well.
Blake, I want to add my 2 cents to it as well.
Please do.
You mentioned complacency a lot. I want to make it very clear. And again, in the coming weeks, we will get going on our show, Glue Guys. And by the way, I should have mentioned LSU flavor on Glue Guys with Anthony Renato, a name that
you're such a homer. You're
such
a homer.
Many LSU folks are going to recognize my co-host for the 2026 college baseball season. So we highly encourage you to check it out. But what I was going to say, and I'll mention this and we talk about it, Blake, I ask you, but I don't expect complacency to be any sort of a factor with this team.
I don't either.
I don't think you get that at a program like LSU. If you're complacent, you lose that first midweek, and it'll snap you out of it real fast.
Wait, you'll have comparisons to Ed Orgeron because of a midweek loss?
I was going to ask you, do you think we get out of the month of how long before we get the Fire Jay Johnson tweets and the Edo comparisons before?
It's not coming. It's not happening.
I feel like you doubt the cesspool of Twitter by saying that. I think it's going to happen.
You're probably right.
You lose to a Nichols or who else? Northwestern State or whatever. Yeah, just saying. Hey, all we know is, listen, love him to death. We know Bear Jones doesn't play third base. We know that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, Chris. Here, you bring that up. I sent you this last night, just off topic, I guess. You don't replace 20-plus home runs, brother. Zach York, which I call him the Panda. And
I was looking him up, by the way. Zach York, I'm sure everybody tuned in knows who he is, but obviously the transfer coming over from
Grand Canyon.
13 homers, 46 ribbies. He's listed on the roster, Blake, at a cool 6'2", 295. I was thinking I think I met you, Blake, in 2022. He's like the 2022, 2023 version of Blake Ruffino.
Yeah, and look, he's not 295 either. He's not 295.
He's got to be pushing 3 bills, right? He's got to be over 3 bills.
He cut down. He
cut down.
Yeah.
And listen, all right, good for Zach.
Listen to me. You think I'm going to play with this? I don't do this. That son of a gun is arguably one of the best defensive first basemen I've seen. I'm not joking.
The Panda's got some moves.
Oh, brother.
Panda's got to be his nickname, right? It has to be.
Skadoosh. Hashtag Panda. Skadoosh. Chris, his deep so we were at the Southeastern scrimmage. A piss shot down the first base line. He dives and gets it. Dives. My man is jelly rolling. Okay, gets it. Gets up, goes to first, and I'm like, he's the fat man king.
He looks kind of like looks like he's got like an Adam Dunn build. You know Adam Dunn.
You know what he reminds me of? A more athletic Prince Fielder.
I was going to say Pablo Sandoval. A little more athletic than that. Pablo was really he was the Panda.
He was
Pablo
literally
was the Panda.
That's a good comparison, Pablo Sandoval.
I think Jack York's probably even in a little bit better shape than Pablo Sandoval.
Oh, he's in much better shape. By the way, I don't think anybody on planet Earth wants to play that man in ping pong either. That dude,
video, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that dude is killing these dudes. But I think that what he gives you a little bit more is a higher batting average, a higher eye at the plate. Me and you talked about this. So going to the plate specifically, Chris, they have an ability to go 1 through – I'm going to go 1 through 7 that could hit double-digit home runs. Like, that's the part where I'm like – because, listen, Derek Curiel, I mean, he can get there. Seth Dardar can do it if that's where. Tanner Reeves, I think, could do it. Stephen Milam hit double-digit home runs. Jake Brown hit double-digit home runs. You got Simpson. You got some other guys there that also hit double-digit home runs at their other stops, which, Chris, if we're just going to be honest, these guys are already hitting SEC pitching. I think that Omar Cerna, and Aaron Beatty, they have the power to get there. Just being at that catcher position, wear them down from a physical body standpoint. But Omar Cerna, Chris, I'm just going to tell you, this dude is freaking strong, man. I mean, he is strong. So then again, I couldn't make the argument 1 through 7 because, Stanny plays in left. I don't think Stanny can get there, right? But that's not his game. But at the same time, they got a kid named Daniel Harden who's a lefty who could play out there. And, Chris, I'm just going to be honest with you. Start messing up in the outfield. And that's for everybody. So, him being that fourth guy, Like, it's a more powered Josh Pearson. By the way, speaking of Pearson, what do you do with his brother who's got a shitload of power? So that's what I'm talking about. That's the dangerous part of this lineup. They might not have a guy that's going to hit 20 bombs. However, leave one over the plate and it's pucker up and kiss that baby goodbye. That's what's going to happen here. That's what makes them so much more dangerous in a way than I think at the plate last year, because you're bringing back so many pieces that, dude, Derek's put on probably 15 pounds. You know, like, I mean, okay, I'm just going to, all right, you're going to mess around and find out, throw one in the middle hard of the plate. It ain't coming back. It's going to hit the Tony Sashery sign.
I'm kind of hurt you didn't play my audio of the Lynn Rollins call, Blake.
Pack her up and kiss that baby goodbye.
I've got to
hold on.
that back to the timeline before opening day.
Hold on. It's easily findable. Easily findable for me.
I sent this to Blake during the season last year just on a whim, and I'm.
You mean this one?
Pucker up and kiss that baby goodbye.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Let's give it one more playback.
Pucker up and kiss that baby goodbye.
That's pretty good.
That is
even
really
me listening back. I'm like, is that Lynn?
Yeah, I mean that was funny, and that dude, baseball season's here.
Like,
he gave the double pucker up for Bear Jones's 1:13 a.m.
Yeah,
pucker up. But that's again, that's the thing.
He had
here's
to catch his breath on that after that first pucker.
Right. Here's another thing though that I don't think is being talked about. Defensively, you were the top team in the SEC. Can you do that again? You know, like that's it. I mean, Danny Dickinson was really good defensively.
I heard Jay Blake say that that was the best fielding LSU team in the history
of all time,
program, which
is
of all time to think about when you think about the guys they've had come through there.
Yep.
Obviously, again, a lot of questions to answer the lineup. I want to get to the pitching staff in a second, Blake, but you mentioned some of the guys you got to replace. Obviously, like every year, you're going to be leaning on a few transfers, guys that have produced, you know, at their respective schools or what have you, and you expect to slide right in. And I want to focus on a single guy, though.
Okay.
And a guy that I mean, it's the low-hanging fruit. It's the very easy answer, but I think he has to be the pick to click for LSU. He's a guy that very well might win the Golden Spikes. He's a guy that you and I got very close with his family in Omaha, that being one Derek Curiel. I mean, there's some guys like that, and the way he burst on the scene as a true freshman, you know, the conversation of the best freshman in college baseball, obviously didn't win the award. I don't mean to rip open that scab again, but
such a joke. Such a joke.
Yeah. Anyways, was phenomenal. Hit 345, 7 homers, 55 ribbies. What he did defensively, what he did in the postseason, played so wise beyond his years. You know, there's some guys, Blake, I think you worry about like a sophomore slump. Or, hey, they've got film on. You know, everybody's watching film now. They know your tendencies. Like when you come on as a freshman, you're a young puppy and you're taking everybody by surprise. I don't see that happening with this kid. Just meeting him, the makeup, you know, we met the family. Just talk about his game. Dude, I think he could be, again, I think he could win the Golden Spikes, dude. I think he could be the best player in college baseball. And I loved what Jay said is that every time, he said some guys are gamers. I heard an interview who's saying some guys are gamers. Some guys cut it on. Derek Curiel is not a gamer. He is a guy that every time he steps on a baseball field, practice, inter squad, you know, position drills, obviously the game, he wants to be the best player on the field. And I think the good news for LSU is more often than not this season, he probably, Blake, is going to be the best player on the field.
Very likely could be. You know, the question for me with him, Chris, doesn't even remotely revolve around the plate. Again, I go back to when we saw him when you came to the scrimmage, you know, which this whole injury thing is, y'all got to stay off of Twitter. He hit a line drive right back up the middle, and then he scored later on. He had a ridiculous catch in center. I don't worry about him at the plate because he reminds me so much of Dylan Cruz in a lot of ways from just his like once it leaves somebody's hand, majority of the time, no, that's a ball. And I'm just not going to swing. I'm not going to press. And that's the thing. Like they scrimmaged yesterday. He walked 3 times. 3. I mean, Chris, it's just like now that he's gained weight and you can't have the ability to put him on first as much as what people did to Dylan Cruz. Now the question becomes, well, you got guys behind him. Are you going to throw to Jake Brown?
Are we confident he's lead off? Are we confident in that?
No.
Because I remember that was like kind of the debate last year.
Well,
I mean, moved around a little bit.
Well, I mean, look, day one, maybe. By the end of the season, who knows? Yeah. You know, and so I'm sure Jay, who messes around with the lineup more than my wife changes her clothes, you know. Don't tell her I said that. But I mean, they're gonna figure it out. The question that I have only with him on the plate is how much more power do you generate? You know, do you generate more power? And then if you do, since you've now gotten stronger, Chris, I think he's 15 pounds heavier. And I think that, look, we joke about this, but just being dead serious, I think in his trunk, his lower half and his midsection, like the trunk, I think he's more solid there. You know, like he was really petite. He was really, but I think that I'm like, you know, I mean, those baseball guys have, you know what I'm talking about, like when guys start filling out. So the question is, I don't really have a lot of questions with him at the plate other than, hey, do you start hitting with more power? For me, it's how do you demand center field? Right? Like, how do you command it? Because Chris Stanfield was insanely talented. And so that's the part of, like, defensively that I'm just more questioning about. And I don't question the kid. Let me rephrase how I want to say this. What does it look like? You know, like, what does it look like? Because I think Stanny had a lot of range, and he still has a lot of range, and you got so much speed in your outfield. And good on Chris Stanfield very quickly to say, hey, man, you promised this kid I'm coming back. I'll move to left. I don't care. Like, I don't care. And so it's just more about that. Like, how do you command it? How do you, does it take you a little bit in a game setting, on a line drive? Do I wait, catch it? And I thought Cruz was the most elite at that, by the way, of knowing when to give up and just getting the ball in and not pressing. And I think Curiel just possesses the left-handed version of all of that, right? Like, that's how I see it. Now, Dylan was a lot stronger, but Dylan came here a lot stronger. So, again, Chris, I don't think that there's a slump. I do wonder for him and Jake Brown, how do you hit left-handed pitching is going to be a big question because, obviously, Curiel went through that 1-for-27 slump. Jake hit, I think, was around 180 against left-handed pitching. So, if there is something at the plate, I think teams will start doing that to him a little bit more to see what it's like. But I just don't worry about him. Do I think he could get to a 400 average? I do. And is he the best player in college baseball? There's a strong possibility that he can be, right? Like, there's a strong possibility because he does everything so well, and he does everything at a high level. You brought up a point that I think is the biggest key, that when you see guys like this, whether it's Schemes, whether it's Tanks, whether it's Curiel, Cruz, it doesn't matter. Every time that I've ever seen them in the offseason, like, Chris, he's kind of talking a little shit, when he walks. Like, yeah, I got your ass. Oh, you the best pitcher on LSU's base. You're at LSU and you're the best dude here. You ain't better than me, right? And I know he's not really saying that, but you know when you look at a guy and you can look in his eyes like, oh, yeah, like he don't give a shit. And so as much as close as we've gotten to his family, how they're wired. And so that's the part of like, oh, I know that he's talking shit underneath his breath, and so that's the part. I still wonder about the power. I wonder about the command in center field. Those are all questions that we're going to have to wait and see. I have no worries. I made this kind of saying when everybody was freaking out about like Kiffin in the portal. I'm never going to be worried about J-Lo looking fine in a bikini. I'm never on planet Earth going to worry about Derek Curiel. I'm just not going to do it. As bad as she's going to look in that bikini, Chris, why would I? In the biggest games as a freshman, who came through? Well, it was Curiel who won you the game damn near in Omaha. He basically won you game 1 in Tennessee. I mean, I know Bear Jones hit the home run. What happened before that, right? And so every time he's got that clutch gene. He just, whatever it is, whatever the it people always want to talk about. Well, here's the what you brought up earlier to start this conversation of Jay saying he don't take days off. And that's the part of the work ethic that I just, I know people brought up like the Garrett thing, in reference to work ethic. That's the part that I talk about. That's the things, that's the shit that I talk about. He's not taking days off, and he's obviously put in the work, because just look at him. I mean, he is a lot bigger. I mean, 15 pounds is a lot of weight for a guy who was that small, and he's not fat. You can really tell the muscle that's been gained here. So all of those questions will be getting answered in less than a month here, Chris.
Blake, final thing, because I want to get to the pitchers, and again, you and I could go all day. I remember the conversation last year, and this is something that'll evolve. You kind of don't know until we get into the season. Identity of the offense. Like last year, I think that was something LSU had to kind of figure out, because it wasn't that powerhouse, we're going to hit a zillion home runs. I mean, you had a couple boppers, but it wasn't what we were accustomed to. When you look at this lineup, obviously there's a lot to be excited about, a lot you were excited about, a lot of questions to answer, though. Like, if you had to project, do you see the identity being similar to last year? Do you think there will be more power? How do you like? And again, this is something, obviously, it's going to evolve. We're going to have to go throughout the season and learn. And I think your identity just really shapes to your strengths. And again, you figured that out as you go. But like the identity of this offense, what would you expect?
I think it is going to change, because as I mentioned earlier, like you're not asking, you're not going to ask a guy like Zach York to bunt. You're not going to ask him to move. So that's your Barry Jones. You bring back Curiel and Brown, which they can do both, right? They're the guys on the top of your lineup that can do both. So you bring in Steven Milam. So you have the makeup to do a lot of the same things that you did a season ago. My question is, what do you do with Daniel Harden? Does he get in that lineup? What do you do with guys that are coming, that are new?
What about this Braden Simpson kid?
Well, that's where I was going to.
Kid.
So
22 bombs last year.
Right. So you bring in Braden Simpson. That's the point. So when I talked about earlier, and now that we're getting into this, you bring in Simpson, you bring in some of these other guys. Chris, these guys aren't going up there to bunt. They're not going over there to try to hit the ball the opposite way to move a guy over. Those guys are going up there to kill baseballs. Pucker up and kiss that baby goodbye. Hello. So like you talk about Simpson, and you talk about a lot of these other guys. Like they brought in Jack Ruckert, who is a guy that I think as a freshman can come in and do a lot of really good things. You brought in Trent Caraway, by the way, who's who's going to play third, who's going to DH. Chris, they kind of got two guys at the corners that can really smash. At what point in your lineup are you playing the ball that you were last year? So, like for an example, when we were in Omaha last year, okay. So what happened? Runner get on first. Jake Brown's up. He bunt down the left, down the third base line. The offense of what last year is. I don't know if I see that. I feel it's a mixture in between 2023, 2025, I guess, right? Like of you can do both. That's the part. Because Jay always wants to play. It's not small ball, but West Coast ball to the extent of we're going to move guys over. We're going to hit a line drive. You have both of those in your lineup. But then I think more than last year in your core of that lineup, you have Simpson, you have Caraway, you have York, and then Jake Brown can do both. That's the part where I'm like, all right. So however, when you hear that, Chris, I'm more interested to hear like what you think about that, because you've been in that world a little bit more than I have, but it's just a question of how do you do it? What's the situation? I think this is going to be more situational of how the season plays out more than anything. I don't think that they're going to struggle offensively. I do think overall they're going to be better, ironically, and so that's the part where I'm like, God bless it, dude. I'm going to have a hot take here. I think guys 1 through 7 could hit double-digit plus home runs. It was something that
maybe it's a more well-rounded lineup.
It very much is more of a well-rounded lineup. But again, you say that though.
And that lineup was pretty good last year.
And that lineup was, but you say that, and then you come to a point where, Chris, if you got 7 guys that hit 12 home runs plus, like that's 20, that's Tennessee and 24.
Yeah, I think the balance is the big thing, like you said, because there's going to be moments in the season where you have to change the game with one swing of the bat. There's going to be moments where you have to get a guy over. There's going to be moments, especially in Omaha, Blake, like we saw last year. We see it every year. You got to be able to get a bunt down. You got to be able to play situational. You got to be able to play small ball. So obviously, if you can do all the above, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. I would agree with you. If they can be well-rounded from that facet. And I think the thing that none of us can predict, time will tell. So many guys last year in any championship run, timely hitting is massive. Hitting with runners in scoring position, 2-out hitting. That's the thing. You can't get inside the minds of some of these guys. And it's like, how do you react when the game's on the line? And how does this team react when they're down 3-0 in the bottom of the ninth to Tennessee? That's what you can't predict.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, to your point. You talk about those lumps in 2024. Chris, that team got their teeth kicked in. Want to know why Barry Jones did? I mean, like, he was never affected at the plate when the big moment happened? Because 2024 happened to him.
Yeah.
2024 happened to him. Well, then now you bring back Stephen Milam, Jake Brown, Derek Curiel, Stanfield. Let's see what Caraway and Simpson do. But, Chris, I mean, at some point, those guys have had over 1,000 at-bats in college baseball. Zach York has seen more pitching than a bullpen on a Friday night in Alex Box. You know, like, I mean, I'm just being blunt with you. So that's the part when you talk about well-rounded that, dude, I have takes that I haven't said yet that I'm just like, I can't do it. But mentally I'm there. What happens at third? The DH York, you know, which the way that he's defensively, shit. I don't know. I don't know. And then again, I'm going to keep bringing this up, and you better let me say it like this. Nobody's talking about Daniel Harden. Okay. You better. Okay. I mean, like, this kid's going to make a push. Chris, I've seen him 4 times this fall. He's gotten out once. And he's hitting elite SEC pitching. And he ain't hitting the ball like a little dribbler up right back at the middle. He's piss riding this thing. So even on the bench, you got Pearson, you have Cerna, you have Pearson. That's the part where I'm like, Chris, if you don't compete and you don't win, there's dudes that are behind you that might take yours. Somebody's going to get beat out of what we think of the starting lineup is. Someone's getting beat out. Someone's, and by the way, I didn't even talk about some of the freshmen. Like, let me bring this up because I have my notes here because we're going to talk about this next week. Ethan Klaus, this kid that's playing shortstop, the freshman, he might be the most athletic dude on this team. He might be the most athletic. Like, I'm getting close to, like, by the way, when we were there, you saw this. When we were there, he had a Derek Jeter play the jump throw.
Yeah.
The jump throw. And I'm like, then he comes up and it's a line drive the opposite. He kind of reminds me a lot of Dansby Swanson in a lot of ways, like the 6'2", 185 pounds. So again, and he's not beating out Stephen Milam. That's not what I'm saying. He starts getting on a roll here, Chris, and you can't find out a situation at second base. Defensively, what happens? So that's the part where I'm like, you keep saying well-rounded. No one was coming in to play second base for Daniel Dickinson last year, even with a broken wrist. Like, they had frontline guys. Now I just think the level of depth is so insane right now. Like Seth Dardar. I mean, Chris, you got 3 guys right now that can play second base and could probably do it at an elite level. That's a part for me that I don't know where you want me to go with this. Because if I come out here and say that they're going to win a national title or get back to Omaha, you're putting expectations on a team that I don't know if it's fair or not. But at the same time, when I'm going there and they're going to scrimmage versus scrimmage and they're doing scrimmages against themselves and inter squads against themselves and they're taking BP, and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I get it. You got to replace Bear Jones and Ethan Fry, who hit for a shitload of power. At the same time, you're better from a vision standpoint at the plate, which reminds me a lot of 23. Chris, that team walked so much. But you had Kay Beloso. You had Brayton Joubert. It feels like a mixture of both of these title teams in a lot of ways.
Blake, I want to move to the mound because I think you could argue there's more questions there than anywhere else. I'm going to ask you a question, and then just let you expand on it. Because when I look at this LSU team, and I think the thing that's going to give not all, but some folks some hesitation.
Yep.
It's like any other sport. Equate it to football. When you lose a Joe Burrow, when you lose a Jaden Daniels, when you lose name whatever other player, how do you not feel the loss of those guys? When you lose a Paul Skeens, how do you not feel the loss? That's the greater question. Not how do you replace them? How do you not feel the loss? So my question to you, and I'll let you expand on the pitching staff, how do you replace what Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson and Chase Shore's late, but Cade Anderson, Anthony Ianson, the 1-2 punch? There's a lot of talent coming back. Ktaeem Evans is going to be your number one, most likely. Stud. We got to hang out with him. Great dude. He's a stud. He showed it last year. But how do you replace the 1-2 punch of Anderson and Ianson and what they did for LSU last year?
You recruited a high level. You recruited because
follow up. Who are those guys? Because I will say this, Cade Anderson, not that he came out of nowhere, but that Cade Anderson came out of nowhere. I don't know that anybody expected. So who are the next in line? If they're going to be replaced, who are the next in line?
Is that William Schmidt? Because Cade Anderson did not have a good freshman year at all. He didn't have a good freshman year at all. I mean, he had one good outing versus Southeastern, but he got rocked in the SEC. He got rocked. Is that William Schmidt? I mean, our good friend would tell you that he thinks that he's gotten to a level of that. Got to see it. Got to see it. Does Latchenmeyer, the kid from, North Dakota, does he come in? I mean, by the way, mowed down LSU's lineup. Came to the box, mowed down LSU's lineup. You think Jay Johnson wrote that down? If this kid goes on portal, I'm going to get him. You got a lot of left-handed arms. I don't know. I think top-line guys, you look at Cooper Moore that you brought in. You got Ktaeem Evans. You have William Schmidt. You feel like on paper you have your three guys. One of those guys is going to start on Sunday because you didn't have a Sunday starter last year. And so I think they believe that Cooper Moore, who, by the way, went through 4 shutout innings yesterday. Am I frozen up on you?
You're good now.
Okay. Who's going to be that top-end guy? Is Ktaeem Evans more of a bullpen guy? Does he have to get moved back? I don't believe that, but he also hasn't gone those 7 innings. So those are the questions. It's not for me about the talent. It's more about the experience and doing it. Because I think William Schmidt is more talented than anybody in that pitching staff. I think he is the most talented from top to bottom. Can he put it all together? But like Ktaeem Evans was more mature than him physically. He was more mature than him physically. And so it's going to be working out all those things. But by the way, Ktaeem Evans' dad, by the way, saw Mr. Evans at the scrimmage. We talked for a while, got to see the Aaron Beatties when we were at Southeastern. I was like, it's the Bengal bus. It's what I came out my car saying. But anyway, I just think that you never replace a top 3 overall pick because Chris, that's just special, right? Like you don't do that. Anthony Ianson was elite down the stretch. Not good, not great. He was elite down the stretch. So it's just going to really depend on who are those guys who are going to step up in the front end. Does Zach Cowan make a move? I mean, if Zach Cowan can go out there against Arkansas and shove it right down their throats, why can't he do it again? Does he find himself in that rotation? So I saw him go up against Arkansas twice and shove it right down their candy ass. So that's the part for me, Chris. I do think you have 4 or 5 frontline starters, but I got to bring this up to you too. There's a lot of freshmen that are on this team that can make moves. And so that's going to be the question too. Do you have an arm like a Ktaeem Evans last year? What do you do at Cooper Williams? What do you do at Latchenmeyer? What do you do at Jaden Newt? What do you do with Zach Cowan? What do you do with a lot of these guys? What do you do with Santiago Garcia? Is he your setup guy? What do you do with Sheeran? What do you do with Grant Fontenot, who, by the way, I saw Grant Fontenot not too long ago. Chris, he was throwing 98, 99, and it was literally in the winter. But there's a kid named Marco Paz. okay, Marcos Paz, who it was the number one player coming out as a pitcher. Had some injuries, had some things go on, didn't get drafted. Chris, there's a strong chance this kid comes in here and beats the shit out of everybody. So, again, they're loaded in that staff. It's just how do you put it all together, right? Like, how do you bring that all together? They got a lot of talent, man. Yeski being retained is arguably the biggest win of the season or of the off season.
Blake, when it comes to the schedule, you and I talked.
Oh, here we go.
Notably, a lot last year about the schedule. Anything in particular jump out to you when you got a first glance at it? Obviously, you open SEC play at Vandy. By the way, on a side note, for whoever's going, SEC Unfiltered will be in Jacksonville for the tournament down there to get a first-hand look at the Bayou Bengals. That'll be a lot of fun. Excited to get back to the Jacksonville College Baseball Classic. Anyways, you open SEC play at Vandy. You've got Oklahoma coming to Baton Rouge. You don't have Texas coming to Baton Rouge, though. Very, very interesting decision there by the league. You've got Kentucky and SEC play at Tennessee is going to be a feature series at Ole Miss. It's a shame that one's not in Baton Rouge. We could have had Lane Kiffin throw out the first pitch. A&M comes to your place. Certainly revenge will be on the mind after last year. At Mississippi State late in April. Blake, spoiler alert, that very well might be my first ever trip to the dude. How about Paul Maneri coming to Baton Rouge near the end?
Talk about toxicity.
You go to Georgia, and then you close out with Kevin O'Sullivan and the Florida Gators before the SEC tournament. Thoughts on the way this – I mean, listen, you're going to have a difficult schedule every single year. And now the schedule's actually, I believe, been switched up a little bit for SEC baseball because of the additions of Texas and Oklahoma, what have you. Either way, though, really quickly, just thoughts on the slate. I mean, it's difficult as always, but it's more difficult when you have to play LSU. Thankfully, LSU doesn't have to play themselves.
That stretch of Tennessee, Tennessee on the road, then you have A&M, right? I mean, you have Ole Miss in between there. I shouldn't throw them out there, but Tennessee, A&M, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
That's a murderer's row. It's not a stretch. It's a murderer's row. But the thing is, yes, you go to Tennessee, but you got A&M at home. You got Florida at home. You do got to go to Georgia. And I get all of that. That is a murderer's row. Why are we going back to Mississippi State again? Why do we have to go back to the dude? Here we go again. Chris, you're about to get me in trouble. Why are we going back there? The last time LSU and Mississippi State played, okay, yes, was here. But, and I know this, like, you played them here last year. I get that. I get that. But at the same time, here's the team, and this isn't a Mississippi State take. Where's Texas? Where's Texas? So you mean to tell me that we're going to have to continue to go to the University of Texas, whether it's in 2023 when in a midweek, Gavin Dugas whipped that candy ass in the ninth inning. You go back there last year, and you're still not bringing them back here. So I don't mind going to Mississippi State. I don't mind having to go back to Georgia. Like, that's kind of more of a joke to me than anything, is that you're going back to Georgia because, of course, you're going back to Athens. It is what it is there. I don't mind that. I love their coaching staff, whatever. It is what it is. Where is Texas? So my point in all of this is that last year I came in here and I said that, all right, SEC, you're really shitty at scheduling. You're very shitty, whether it's baseball or football. Chris, they go to 9-game conference schedule in football. They're demanding another P4 game when the Big Ten doesn't have to do it. So you fucked up there. So you come back into baseball. Of course they're going to fuck up again because we've been to Texas how many times? We want our lick back. We want our lick back. Stop coddling them. Stop coddling them. You're rolling out the wheelchair and go, oh, Texas, do you need a lift? No, bitch, they're in the SEC. So I am always sick and tired of these schedules and how they, how they play out. I love going back to Ole Miss. I love going to the dude. I'm glad that you get to go to Georgia. That one doesn't really bother me. My thing has been, why do you keep keeping them off that schedule? You keep talking that shit, and you got eliminated in the first round. So I had all these Texas people last year, and by the way, Texas A&M people last year. Oh, they're not the pinnacle of college baseball. The Intimidator. You don't have one. You're never going to have one. Newsflash, you're not. You'll never touch LSU baseball ever in your history. So sorry that we're the pinnacle. But at the same time, I wanted that lick back. Now, you got me in a lot of trouble last year. I hope this part gets clipped. You got me in a lot of trouble last year because, like, Blake's running scared. And then at the end of the season, everybody's talking about the schedule. Everybody, you tell me, Chris, I came out on January the 20th last year, and then people were calling me out saying, Blake's running scared, he's doing this. Okay, what was everybody talking about Texas's schedule in the end?
Yeah.
What were they talking
100%.
about? 1,000%. Every ranked game, every ranked team they had was at home.
They went on the road to Arkansas and got smacked.
Go on the road to Arkansas and get patty smacked. By the way, a team that LSU beat how many times last year? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so do you get my point here? Like, am I crazy? And I know Texas's schedule is a little bit more difficult this year, but why? Like, Chris, where's Oklahoma? Where's Oklahoma? They're coming into Baton Rouge this year. Why didn't you do that with Texas? Why? I love Skip. I love Oklahoma, but why? That's the part for me that I'm like, y'all keep talking about this shit. Y'all keep bringing it up. Y'all keep saying I'm running scared. Oh, Blake Ruffino's going. I'm not scared. Listen to the entire fucking video. But it just comes down to a part. I want my lick back. We keep going there. We keep going there. We keep going there. I want them here. So that was the whole point last year. Remember, my whole point here was, hey, man, can you just not look at the schedule from the previous years of how many times LSU's gone into Austin, which congratulations. The only thing that's happened there is LSU's gone inside the state of Texas and walked in your trap, took your recruit, and then brought him here. So you want to keep doing it, by all means, keep doing it. But, Chris, that's the part for me that aggravates me the most in all of this. So I know it's going to get clipped. I know people are going to say I'm running scared. I know all of this is going to happen. But now I just asked the question, where, like, you were all talking about it at the end of the year last year. Then when I brought it up in January, you say I was running scared. What are you going to bring up now? What's the argument now? So don't, if you're Texags, if you're Texas, don't come putting out the content later on in the baseball season because you haven't looked at it. It's called preparation. And I'm not talking about H.
Preparation H does feel good on the whole.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
I do. No, I do. Look, we saw it. We saw it first. That take was getting resurfaced in June, ironically enough.
You're goddamn right it was getting resurfaced because I was the one that resurfaced it. You're damn right. And I tweeted you, I texted you, and I'm like, I'm bringing this back up. I'm bringing it back up. And then here's the part that aggravated me the most. It was the exact same take.
Yeah.
It was the exact same take. You were telling people to not watch AYS, which, by the way, AYS does more numbers than you. Okay. It's not remotely close. Just throwing that out there, not even remotely close. And then you want to badmouth me saying LSU people shouldn't watch me, even though we're doing more numbers than you. And then, Chris, you turn around and have the same exact take.
Tis the season.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared because that's the part that pisses me off. That you look what you did. We went an hour in here and you didn't get me this riled up, but you got me riled up now.
Folks, you will not find a more passionate, in-depth, electric LSU baseball season preview than you'll find in this one. Blake, last thing.
Yep.
I'm not going to ask you expectations for the season. That's a really silly question. I mean, like you said, you're hesitant to put, but it's LSU baseball. The goal is to win the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
You don't use the word failure if you don't do it, but when you've won 8 of them, winning a 9th one is the goal. That's Jay Johnson has set that expectation. It will be a disappointing season if they don't. So in your mind, let's just say to get back to Omaha. Once you get there, who knows? Pick to click for this team to get back to Omaha in the College World Series. What has to happen for LSU? And also, too, and I'll follow up with this. because I was trying to remember what I was going to say. Pick to click for them to get back to Omaha. And then when you look at the landscape of the SEC, no more Tony Vitello. That's a big one. But what do you see? Obviously, LSU is going to be one of the favorites in the league. Arkansas, the way I know LSU whooped up on Arkansas last year, but there'll be a factor right there. Mississippi State's in the preseason top 5. We'll see if they live up to that. Florida's going nowhere. So many other. Texas won the league last year. They'll be back with a vengeance. Georgia and what they're doing. This league is as deep as ever. And let's also keep in mind, the years LSU won the national title, like they didn't win the SEC. So for LSU people that's not really the ultimate goal, right?
No.
Anyways, though, pick to click, and then what you see from the league as a whole going into opening day.
Arkansas is a very talented team. We just got done talking about scheduling, okay? So don't take what I'm about.
You miss them. You do miss them.
You missed them, but
you also whooped up on them last year.
You whooped up on them last year. But here's my thing. Listen to me, LSU fans. Because of the scheduling, because they don't go through more of a gauntlet than you do. I mean, Chris, we were talking about Tennessee. You're talking about A&M. You're talking about Ole Miss. I mean, South Carolina might be the down week, I guess. But, I mean, LSU in that March, April, going into April, May, that is a death row, right? Like Florida doesn't suck. They just got injured last year, right? Like they got really banged up and they bring back a lot of talent. But because of Arkansas's schedule and what they're bringing back, Chris, I have a hard time. I have a really hard time saying that they're not going to be in the top 2.
I mean, Blake, I saw a stat. They haven't won less than 18 SEC games in a season since like 2017. And they're going to be there.
The only problem that Arkansas has at this exact moment is catching a pop-up or a line drive in Omaha. Right? I think
just
right in the heart.
Right in the heart.
I still, even though I just went off on Texas, I still think they're going to be really good. Florida's going to be really good. I'm really intrigued by Tennessee. I'm very intrigued by Tennessee.
Era.
Well, what does Michael Early do? What does Tennessee do?
What is A&M? That's a good question, too.
That is a really good question. I know that there's been a lot coming out of A&M and, ex-players, and I don't know. But Chris, what if they're the 9th team in the SEC with that amount of talent? Like that is atrocious. So, Chris, I think that this is just a murderer's row. Whoever is going to have the top end pitching staff is going to win, like it happened last year. I mean, like everybody keeps asking how do these teams keep winning? Who's got the top end guys? Who has the select hitting in the end? That's how it all plays out. I'm really intrigued by Florida. I mean, the thing with Sully, you can say whatever you want about Sully, but they just got so beat up last year. So beat up. And then they found a way. They got some explosive arms. And so like that series in Baton Rouge, you want to talk about toxic? You want to talk about outright toxic? Oh, Chris, I found the series you're coming to, by the way. Man.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Oh, and listen, man, you're going to be wearing that purple and gold, and Sully's going to see you. Oh, man. Brother, this is going to be so great. But even them, Chris, I think that there's legitimately, and I mean this, and Mississippi State, I hadn't even talked about them. Chris, there's legitimately 7 teams in the SEC that I think at the end of this could hold that trophy. Because there's some midline teams like that. Vandy, I love Corbs. Like, I got to see it. I got to see you get out the first round. You know what I mean? Like, they're a solid team. But at the same time, Chris, is that your ninth team in the SEC? Is that your 8th team in the SEC? I think half the league potentially could find themselves in Omaha and raising that trophy, and that is ridiculous. So, like, when you talk about SEC baseball, Chris, if a team goes 15-15 in this conference, they're still a really freaking good team. And they can go into anybody's and here's the funny thing. Remember in the first round of the playoffs last year, everybody's like, oh, see, it's the ACC that's dominating. The SEC's down. Do you remember
Oh
that?
yeah. I
Do you
trust
remember
me.
that?
I remember. Trust
And
me.
I'm like, oh, brothers and sisters in Christ. Brothers and sisters in Christ. Come on. And then what did we find out? The two most talented teams were there at the end.
The LSU Arkansas game was for the Natty. Yeah.
You're going to, Chris, we talk about this all the time. Chalk normally wins. And people will say, well, Blake, you're saying that after Indiana just won a national title. Here's the biggest lie about Indiana. You're going to sit here and tell me that, oh, they don't have the athletes. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Have you seen a white dude moss people like that, like Charlie Becker did? The last time I saw a white dude moss somebody like that, Gronk was still playing. And that's just a different beast. So most talented teams are going to win, Chris. That's the name of the game. That is the name of the game. I think 8 teams legitimately could find themselves holding that national title in the end of this. I think there's thin. I think more than last year, there's more of a thin margin in the top 8 than ever before. I truly believe that. What is Ole Miss going to be? Like, dude, I mean, Ole Miss, God.
Yeah.
All right, hot take. Now that I'm thinking about this, is the SEC more stacked than ever before?
Hey, what's Auburn going to be? They're a preseason top 10 in some polls. I mean, that's another one.
I didn't even bring up Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's one you just easily forget because they don't really feel like a baseball school with all due respect, but like.
Well, they swept the national champion last year. Remember when everybody said that's when it really happened. That's when the fire Jay Johnson really happens, when you got swept.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is right now, besides Missouri, everybody's dangerous. Don't mean to take a straight shot at Mizzou, but it is.
Well, I think. Look, I was talking to an SEC coach who you know that I know very well. They think Kentucky's got a squad.
Dude, Kentucky, Cleaver's back. They got some dudes, bro.
They got some dudes.
But the thing about this league is, Blake, and again, I don't think it's going to be LSU. Spoiler, but somebody's got to lose games. I mean, not everybody can go 15-15 or 16-14. Somebody's going to go 13-17. It's going to happen.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about should A&M have been in the playoff last year?
Well, you get swept by Mizzou. You got what you deserve.
Yeah, right. Right. But at the same time, like it's going to always be that debate, and so I think it's loaded yet again. I'm really intrigued. I do think that the front end pitching might be better than it was a season ago.
In the SEC or for
in the SEC? Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. Look, man, people maybe as a whole.
Yeah.
Maybe as an overall whole. I mean, shit. We'll see, because there's some mid-major teams that got some rejects from big SEC schools. Chris, I saw 2 mid-major programs this year during the fall. I saw 3 guys from a mid-major throwing 97 plus. You know what I mean? So, even then, what's Coastal? I think UCLA is stacked. All those kids came back.
Yeah. Preseason number 1.
So we'll see, man. This is going to be a loaded stack. It's going to be a loaded stack.
Yeah. 22 days till opening day as we sit right now when you and I have this conversation.
Did you just moan in your mind? Because I did.
Yeah. I've been moaning since we started the countdown, admittedly. Yeah, it's going to be in the 20s this weekend in Nashville, and I'm dreaming, Blake. You got me. I was sitting there thinking of warmer days in Hoover and Omaha, and it'll be here before you know it, man. I absolutely cannot wait. You know I love it. You love it. And I know LSU fans, y'all love it as well. Like I said, you're not going to get a more in-depth, more passionate, more electric season preview for the Bayou Bengals than you'll get with this one. And, Blake, I know you and I will be having tons of conversations this season, whether it be off the air, but certainly on the air, talking LSU and SEC.
And look,
we love it, man. We love it.
I'm fired up for you and Renato. I think it's going to be absolutely electric.
Listen, it was just always meant to be. I couldn't stay away from
the Bayou,
LSU, Louisiana, any of it.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to come down for the Florida series.
I just need to make sure I am there for crawfish season.
Yeah, about Florida time.
I know there's a lot of folks watching this that hope my crawfish is dead before the boil. I get it. But let's all let bygones be bygones when we get into baseball season. How about that?
Well, see, here's what I tell them too, the LSU fans. You can't get mad at me for saying you're going 8-4 in football when you go 8-4.
Fair point.
Either I'm Nostradamus or you can't be mad at me. Okay. Yeah, I told this story before we leave. I brought up a story between me and you on Monday about because this thing with Garrett came out. You had tagged me and
I said you called it. Yeah, you called the
very quickly. Yeah. I told a story about these people walking up to me at that crawfish bowl, the tailgate, saying, "Oh man, you're 2 down. Where you at? And what's your Twitter at? What's your Twitter at?
What's your Twitter at?
I'm coming for souls. Get over here. Like it's Portal Combat. No, I'm going to don't do that." But
Blake getting that Nussmeier take right was like Thanos' last Infinity Stone. He just went to another level.
I took so much shit behind it. People were coming up, "Oh man, I love you, but you're wrong on Garrett Nussmeier." Am I? No.
Drop the mic.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. So again, anyway, but I'm really looking forward to baseball season. After this portal haul is done. We don't care about basketball down here, brother. I mean, let's just be honest.
Hey, it's all seriousness though. Fire Matt McMahon. I don't know if this is the place for it, but fire Matt McMahon. LSU deserves better. Come on.
They're already my TikTok.
Time to make a move.
It's time to make a move, and I think that they will. Will Wade.
You imagine the trio of Will Wade, Jay Johnson, Lane Kiffin, and Kim Mulkey.
And Kim Mulkey.
Jesus. Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports, also Ruffino and Joe. Check them out as well. College football all year long. Obviously, AYS, everything LSU. Blake, appreciate you taking the time, man. Let's do it again soon. Excited to see you down on the Bayou, my friend. Baseball season's almost here.
It is. I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited. Hold on. Do I need to kiss the baseball? Or maybe you need to kiss the baseball. Yeah. It's the tradition here. Yeah. There it is. We're back. Now we're back. We're back. We're back. Yeah. We're back. We're back.